Welcome to the program. We have had a few wonderful days here in Greece, and we have a distinguished guest in the panel today. Would you perhaps like to introduce yourself from the right?
Yeah, I can do that. My name is Roland, and I'm from the University College of Southern Denmark.
Álfhildur from Árskóli in Iceland. It's a primary school.
Okay, Kostas from Athens in Greece.
Sigrún from Keilir school in Iceland.
And my name is Ólafur, and I am from a fisheries college in Iceland, actually the only one, a vocational school. And I will try and act as a moderator during this discussion, but I think we're probably just going to help each other along here. But we have one objective, and that is what is our goal here? I mean, this is one of the, not the last, but the second last meeting of the BestEDU project. What have we learned? So the question is, maybe I would like to ask you, and I don't know who wants to begin, but what have we actually learned during COVID? And if something positive, how would we then support teachers in continuing on that path?
Yeah.
So somebody maybe wants to start?
Yeah, I can do that. One of the great takeaways for me here is how dependent everything is on the engagement of the teacher. And I think we should never underestimate the importance of teachers who are fiery for their teaching and what they can move when they are put into a position where they have to change. I think that's from all the examples that we've seen throughout the project, that's one of the things that really for me was one of the takeaways here, right? So you can have a counterplay by the infrastructural systems that play against you. You can have systems that do not work, and you can have all kinds of obstacles. But if you get the teachers motivated and engaged, which they often are, because what they almost live for teaching children, they will find a way. And then of course there will be differences in quality, but they will adapt throughout the period of time, and it will get better, even though it's.
Can I follow up?
Yes. Sure.
You say the motivation of teachers. I mean, this is, and those who get fired up. I know we've seen many teachers here in Greece who actually have been sort of carrying the weight, individuals. But this is just one of the meetings. We've already been in Finland, Denmark, Iceland. Is this something that you see common for the countries, or is it specifically here?
Well, I don't know that many other teachers in Greek, but or in Iceland, I can just refer to the people that I've seen, yeah, right?
Yeah.
But I'd say I think it's a general concept that if you kind of create environments or create sentiments for the teachers to kind of give them freedom to try and experiment with this, then many teachers, they will try to do their very best. And then it's up to us to kind of see, okay, where are the obstacles that we can kind of even out for them to further make them develop their teaching practices. And I mean, you will always meet obstacles. The question is, how does the management or the leaders help teachers to remove these kind of obstacles? And often, when I listen to the teachers throughout, both in Denmark and Iceland, and also here in Greece, it's often structural or infrastructural obstacles that they share. It's not so much the kids. It's not so much the content. It's more the systems that are actually supposed to support them that are shaking. And when the support systems are shaking, the teachers start to shake. So you will you need somebody to kind of grab the pillars so that the fundament will stand.
So, Sigrún, do you want to comment on that? I mean, do you agree with Roland that the fiery teachers that...
Yeah, but usually it's not the fiery teachers that are the problem. We need to catch all the teachers.
Oh, okay.
We need to try to figure out how to spread from the fiery teachers to all the teachers into the schools. What can we learn there, I think? I mean, there were problems, there were obstacles, there were also unexpected positive sides, I think. If I think about many of my students, many of them were like enjoying the situation, staying at home and learning. Finally, they could do it on their own terms.
Most people were looking at this as a huge problem.
Yeah.
I mean, just negative things.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to remember that there are positive sides. And how do we keep them in the school system even though we are back to normal? If we would put it like that.
Álfhildur, do you want to comment on that?
Definitely, because you spoke about obstacles. There are obstacles, definitely, and there are also silver linings to COVID, like the ICT teacher we met yesterday was talking about. Certainly all the teachers had to jump on the train and get involved with technology, and I relate to that very much. But I think the solution of the obstacles are trust and freedom to the teachers, because we saw things happen when they got the trust and freedom they didn't have before, but the people above had to give them those tools when COVID came. And with the students, because I think many teachers saw that some students, maybe not many and maybe definitely not all, liked to stay at home and learn on their own terms. Maybe hybrid teaching is something we should look into. I think it's a really huge thing to look into, with a lot of obstacles and also freedom. But it seemed like it suited some kids, even though many were happy to get back to school and meet up with friends and have face-to-face communication.
And also not suited. I mean, they maybe love to stay in school and be there, but maybe they have difficulties. For example, my students that had problems with hearing, it was easier for them to learn in the distance learning environment, for example. So equality, it's a part of that. Equal access to school
opportunities.
Yeah.
That's very interesting that you say, because here the main problem related with the COVID and the situation was exactly the equality of opportunities, because there were the people that had access to the equipment and had access to a stable internet connection and had access to a quiet room to study. They were more or less okay, even if they had this kind of social, psychological problems that are created by the confinement. But the main thing was about the people that did not have the access to these things. So the main problem with teaching during COVID was social inclusion, was in relation with the students that had less opportunities, or there was only one mobile phone in the family and there were 3 children, and it was an access of what to do first. Or for example, in the first confinement, I remember that there was in the house we had one computer and one mobile phone, one smartphone. So I had to, my son was doing the lesson with the computer, and I could not work in the morning while he had school. I had to do all the work with the meeting on the mobile phone, and then after he finished, I could have the computer to work. So it's a problem with access to the equipment, and also to have this kind of culture of online learning. So I guess that this is much more difficult in a Mediterranean country that we're used to be out than in Iceland.
Yeah.
And as a local, as a man from here, I mean, as a participant and you have children in school. Do you feel that is there a discussion here about post-COVID? I mean, for the education system, is this a
Yes, of course.
do you find the comments, we are all from the outside looking in, but you're from the inside, perhaps
yes,
more looking out? Is it relevant, the comments that you hear during
yes, all the
discussion?
comments are relevant. So you have, from the visits you have made, I think you have understood well the Greek educational system, which as I have told you, is very much based on the individual initiative taken from the teachers, and eventually, if you are lucky to have a good headmaster or a good school environment to support you, then you can do miracles. But otherwise, you can have problems. But the main thing I think is that the reality is changing faster than the system, and the system changes more slowly.
But this is an active discussion here, and there's a dialogue going on in education in Greece.
Yes.
On this subject.
On the basis of COVID, many things have changed because many people were forced to do things that otherwise would not have done. So, but now they have done it. So now they know.
I think.
So now they have more skills. And I think everybody remembers, as they have told you yesterday, this period as a very heavy period with a lot of work and doing things that are very different from their usual stuff. But I think that the skills that they have learned, now they will definitely be much more helpful in case we have another emergency, but also in order to have different ways to teach, not leaving the traditional ways, but adding things to the traditional ways that we are used to.
If I have understood correctly, I mean, I think it's a joint opinion from all of us that COVID has the effects of COVID have actually been. There are also positive sides, especially in education. There are some really interesting, creative ways people have managed to survive or engage students, engage teachers, etc. So there's obviously a positive side to this. But as maybe Álfhildur mentioned earlier, how if this is the fact, and for all of our countries, I mean, this is not something maybe you would like to comment on. How do we proceed? I mean, if there are positive, if there's a light here and there, how does the system or who is going to support and continue and how will we evolve? How will we develop from here? So again, maybe Roland.
Yeah, for me, from my perspective, the COVID was an impulse for change on 4 levels. On an ontological level, meaning that we all of a sudden are beginning to think about what do we want schools to do. So when you mention hybrid learning, for instance, is that something that we would like to foster and that we would like to continue in? And should it be like pupils going to school every day, going to school 3 days a week, staying home? Do we want to copy the societal way of doing things now? So there's an ontological question on what do we want schools to do and how? And then there's an organizational level, a management level, a structural level, where we kind of we make new types of classrooms to make it possible to do, for instance, hybrid learning, just to take that as a case, or other kinds of pedagogical approaches. Then there is a teaching level. We teach in new forms, which also has an impact on different and new kinds of activities. So we do activities that were not possible before. And then there is on the learning level, what does technology do cognitively, psychologically, to our way of learning, transferring knowledge, and stuff like that. So for me, there is these 4 levels, and you cannot just mess them up. They are dependent on each other, but you actually have to look at these different levels as well. So, and what we've been doing mostly here is to look at the teaching level, right? But I think it's a big dynamical system, and you can have different entry levels.
Can we make any more practical, use of this model of these 4 levels? I mean, is there something we can do now?
Well, yeah.
You're working in this area, supporting teachers.
Yeah.
So what would be your dream situation?
That everyone was on board still, because it's maybe quite tempting now when COVID is over just to crawl back into the old habits.
But how would you maintain that? I mean, the system is slow, organizational level, it's slow. Teachers' education, you have to change that, but how are you going to seize the moment?
That's the big question. And I don't really have the answer to it, but I think with speculation on COVID and what happened, we will begin to find the answer.
I feel that Roland has just pointed out this is the long term. You have to have a plan, you have to have all the elements in place, but there is the moment. So
yeah, but I think what we should be careful of, because we were talking about hybrid learning, is that the decisions will be made from the right angle. Because hybrid learning, I know for sure, would be really good and popular with Icelandic politicians, because it would save money. You don't have to transport all the kids from the countryside into schools, and that saves a lot of money. So that might be the agenda, and that can't happen. The agenda must be on the right level. And I think we have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
Kostas, do you think the system can change that rapidly, or do you think?
Well, depends.
Do you think it's underway already, or?
Well,
I mean, how do you? I mean, not lose the spark that we saw the day before yesterday. One woman, it's like she was carrying the Kindle there. I mean, describing her project after work, not paid. Yeah. How do you foster that? How do you keep that alive?
Well, as I told you, systems are slow to change. So if you arrive in hybrid, first of all, I'm not sure that, as you have said, that hybrid model is good for at least for school education. What is good is, like we say in this project, that we gathered lessons learned from COVID, not only related with ICT skills, but also related with all the other factors like creativity that we were saying before, like because you were forced to be creative in this kind of environment, or like communication between the teachers, or like teamwork, etc. In order to have results at the micro level, I think. So it's difficult to have so many or immediate results at the macro level, because it is the system that we are used to a specific system, and everybody knows a specific system, and is difficult to change. And also we don't have this kind of culture or this kind of infrastructure that you could have in other countries in order to change. But in the micro level, in the school level, in the teacher level, I think that are many things that have been used during COVID, or many skills that have been acquired through COVID, which continue, because if you acquire one skill, you don't lose it after.
Before we go to Sigrún, just one question. I mean, do you think parents have a role there? Parents, because
parents.
Yesterday we heard that there were actually pressure from parents on the principal to.
Yeah, parents, when they see.
So they have a role there, do you think? Or will they have a more?
Parents, when they see something that is good, that works, they press to have it more. If they don't know it, they are conservative, generally, at least here. So say, okay, let's have a normal book, let's say, or have a normal session, because otherwise what they're doing, they are playing, they're not learning. So the concept of that you can learn better through playing is not so much common. So but then if they see that this works, then they want more. And and they can motivate, so they cannot change or pressure or change something, but they can motivate people to do more and to try different things. But at the beginning, they should try new things and should be open. Not everybody is open, but they can learn to be open.
Sigrún, before you answer the same question, I mean, add on, do students have a role to play there? I mean, can they have a role in keeping the flame alive?
Yes, that's really...
And how do we support teachers? I mean, is it, yeah.
I think it's really important to remember what is the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal can never be, for example, to show up in school. That's not the goal. You have to learn, and you can maybe easily learn without showing up in the school.
It's not a question of doing the time.
Not a question of doing the time. It's a matter of trust, which I think we really needed to use trust a lot in COVID. The principals, they needed to trust their teachers. The teachers needed to trust the system and trust themselves to do something new. And the teachers needed to trust the students to do a certain amount of work. And the parents needed to trust the children because there were all kinds of shady areas in this. And I think many of the things went well.
Also, the teachers needed to trust the parents because
yes.
In distance learning, they had to organize.
Yeah. So I think, what can we do with that, those information? How can we embrace that and remember that each and every student is not the same? So what is the goal? Mm-hmm. The goal is not to show up in school if we need to do it in a different way, for example. It's my short answer.
One interesting question I heard once or comment was that it's more important that students learn than teachers teach.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's a one size fits all for this. So there are different cultures in different countries, that in some countries would be more easy to do that, in some others not. Some countries would be more efficient, in some other countries not.
Yeah, but to add to that, the beautiful sentence this morning was that we can change. Now we know, like Tito said this morning, which is absolutely something we need to remember.
Yes, we can change, but it's not necessary that we all change in the same direction.
No.
Is all change good? I don't know.
Well, you talked about teacher teaching versus pupils learning. I think my dream vision is this learning society, that we're all learning together and finding our best methods together, and to make sure that teachers continue on the role they had on COVID. I think support is also really important, that they have someone to ask questions and help them find the answers, and training to use both technology and pedagogy in the direction we want to go into.
According to that, if we honestly look back on COVID, each and every one of us, and really think about what did we do and how can we learn from it in an honest way, there's a lot we can really take with us into the future.
Definitely.
So use of information technology is not a question of either or.
Yeah.
When I'm listening to this, again, pointing back at the 4 different levels, you can say that depends on what level you want to change, because from an ontological or maybe even an organizational level, the schools haven't changed the last 3,000 years. We were looking at Raffaello yesterday, seeing Socrates standing and teaching, and people were gathered in the same room. They were centered around one person who had the wisdom. There was somebody sitting down back, writing, looking over the shoulders of another one who was reading a book. And on that level, school hasn't changed for the last 3,000 years, and will not change for the next 1,000 years. Who knows? But on a teaching level, and maybe on a pedagogical level, we have a much bigger chance of changing what needs to be changed. But we have to think really carefully, because promoting technology will also drive us in a specific direction, closing other doors, which we will not go back from. So for me, it's not using technology, it's using technology in a smart way, considering future perspectives of that change, not just change because it's possible. For instance, hybrid learning will have a huge impact on how the teacher role is played out in the classroom. I've done it several times, and I'm hindered in movement, because if I move too much, the people on the other side of the screen, they can't hear me, they can't see me, and I'm used to walking around with the students, rearranging the room rapidly. Suddenly I get an idea, it's emergent, and we stand up in a circle and we do certain kind of stuff. But you can't do that if half the people are sitting at home.
But is this a pedagogical problem or a technical problem? Is something you probably can solve technically?
Yeah, there are projects where, for instance, students carry around little robots with students sitting at home, but the interaction will definitely change.
Yeah. But the film, the camera following you around.
Yes, that would be a 3D camera in the room. So that would do something.
So it's a technical
but
problem.
I'm talking to people that I cannot see into their eyes. I can see if they actually understand.
But this is
Do you
only
have
one...
to see people?
No, I was
Can you create an emotional contact with people that you can't?
I know it's just one example.
One example, and the other example is that one day we all meet, and then all the rest of the week we are at home, and nobody is sending out live broadcasting. That's another model. Sure. And it's also possible to stand in front of a camera from 9 to 4, entertaining students, which you cannot see, and it's okay.
Sure.
It's
possible,
it's
but
possible.
Is it what we want?
I mean, it could be one of the solutions, like the example you were having. I mean, there's no one fits all, and that's really what I am totally, I agree, and that we should use that phrase more.
So one fit all, are you thinking individually or countries or culture or so on, or just simply, are we going back, or are we going into a more personalized, like we have personalized medicine? Are we having one-on-one teaching? I mean, depending on your needs, individual needs.
No, I think that in the core of teaching is this kind of group. The group feeling, let's say, the interaction between the students, peers in the same group, etc. So if you do it individually, you lose half of the things. Also culturally, these things that you say maybe could be possible in Denmark or in Iceland, for me is extraterrestrial. I think that the use of the answer to your questions, it is either or. The use of technology is not either or, it's how. And that this how should be adapted to the needs of country first, but also at the local and at the school level.
He says not either or, but how. Would you like to have the last comment? And how do we proceed? How do we support?
I think we should proceed with using this huge opportunity COVID gave us to reflect on where we stand. Because it's really true what Roland said, that we haven't changed much in teaching in 3,000 years. And maybe this is the time we have to reflect on ourselves. Are we doing the best? Is that why we've been doing it for 3,000 years? Because it's really the best way? Or do we have other ways that are even better?
I don't know whether we should finish off with this good comment. And thank you for joining the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we sign off for today.